Bye-bye. 020-8687-7878 is the number to call. We're going to go straight to our next guest, and we have with us on the line Jason Kishinev. Jason Kishinev is a two-time anti-imperialist candidate for the U.S. Congress who prides himself on being a bold voice for justice and peace for all people. Jason Kishinev, good afternoon, peace be upon you, and welcome to the Drive Time Show.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here with us, Jason. Jason, how do you view the international response to the situation in Palestine? I mean, we know how the media was reporting it, but in terms of the international communities, how was their response to the situation?
Largely, the international response has been a total disgrace, largely because the U.S., the United Kingdom, and their allies have been using Israel as a proxy to help them coup Assad and colonize Iraq, and they are planning to do the same thing to Iran. A lot of countries don't want to oppose the U.S. because they're afraid they'll lose U.S. aid money, particularly countries like Egypt. But also, just like we see in any disaster, some countries, and there are very few of them, are donating everything they can to the Palestinians, like Yemen, which is under this crippling blockade from the Saudis, and Iran, which is strapped with like 1,500 U.S. sanctions. And so that's really great. Mm-hmm. I know Ireland is really supportive of Palestine as well.
I mean, good afternoon, Jason. And as regards to that, what's your view on, or what's your opinion regarding, President Joe Biden's declaration soon after, or just prior to the ceasefire, if memory serves me correct, that although America's, I suppose, America would continue to provide the iron shield for Israel, but to, I suppose, offset that would give aid to the, I suppose, not resettlement, but the rebuilding of the damage that had been inflicted in Gaza.
Right. Well, Joe Biden is a sociopathic warmonger who has advocated for almost every war we've ever been involved in his 48 years in office. And, like I said, Israel is their proxy to use to attack all these countries in the Middle East. Yeah, it's pretty disgusting who the choices we're given in the United States are between, two different fascists, and it's really we have a messed up system here, as you do there, I understand.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. Don't get me onto that, Jason. Now you've written, in your article that Jews are taught to see Israel as the sole Jewish homeland, Zion. Which means that its flip side is that any criticism of the state of Israel is inevitably linked to the Jewish community. Now, in your opinion, in your view, how can these two things be differentiated? Because, clearly the entire Jewish community is not responsible for what the Israeli government does. Hello, Jason? Are you still with us?
I think we've the call's been we kind of disconnected, but we're going to try and reconnect with him, and we'll try and get the rest of the answers for the 7 days of constant bombing and airstrikes. The physical and psychological devastation and trauma for the Palestinians is immense. But of course, I mean, we're going to be talking about this. We're going to carry on and talk about this, but we do have, I believe,
Jason back on.
Okay, Jason is back on the line. Talib, you were asking him your
Hi,
question.
Jason, are you back with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. A bit of technical problems there. So my question was, you've written it in your article that Jews are taught to see Israel as the sole Jewish homeland, which means that its flip side is that any criticism of the state of Israel is inevitably linked to the Jewish community. Now, in your view, how can these two things be differentiated? Because clearly the entire Jewish community is not responsible for the actions of the Israeli government.
No, we aren't, and that's a really hard question because Zionist Jews have internalized Israel not only as a homeland, but as a personal identification. Mm-hmm. And you can't rip someone's identity away from them. They're going to fight you tooth and nail. Mm-hmm. I watched an interview with Gabor Mate, who is a Jewish Holocaust survivor, and he says you have to start by acknowledging that anti-Semitism is a real concern, and then you can say, but it doesn't justify these crimes that Israel's committing. Mm-hmm. And we just have to keep spitting truth. Plus, it always helps to use Jewish sources to back up your point so that people can see that you're coming from a place of love and not a place of hating Jews.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't want to be just, I suppose, tarred with one brush saying that, because you have, whether it be whatever sentiment it is that you have regarding Palestine, that you are so polarized that you can't see the other side. You also have raised a very important point in your article that almost everyone is taught, a type of, a whitewashed history of their country or peoples. Now, how can we ensure that history is taught with objectivity and is really achievable in today's age? I mean, we had the same kind of like example here with British history. So, how can we change that in the future?
Well, it's difficult because history is told by the winner, right, and then manipulated by the rich, however they see fit. That's always going to be. There's always going to be different versions of history, and different forces working to change how it is told. In the U.S., we have a movement of fascists who are trying to erase the genocide of tribal peoples that our country was built on and slavery from our history books, because they think that we're teaching our children to be anti-American, which is just ludicrous. And social media is helpful, and it makes it harder, right? Because there's so much more access to information, but also so much more disinformation, including from state-funded actors from countries like the U.S., the United Kingdom, Israel, Venezuela, Ukraine, even Azerbaijan. We just have to keep spitting facts and keep teaching each other and our children how to think critically about what they see and hear.
So, I suppose, ultimately, in your view, where does the situation lie with Israel and Palestine? Sorry, not situation, I should say solution, right? Where does the solution lie with, both Israel and Palestine, which can, truly ensure peace and the establishment of justice?
I know a lot of people support a two-state solution, but because the way the Palestinian communities in Palestine have been broken up by Israeli settlements, I think that's really going to be hard to do. Also, there remains the original problem with the 1947 partition plan, meaning that Israel would retain most of the fertile land and most of the wealth and the population centers, and then throw in the Israeli government's willingness to drone strike its neighbors without provocation. And I think ultimately a two-state solution would not work well at all for the Palestinians. Mm-hmm. I think the way forward, the way to lasting peace, is actually one state with actual democracy, not Jewish democracy, and equality for everyone in Palestine. And I don't care if it's called Israel or Palestine or Jewish Palestine or Palestinian Israel or just the Holy Land. Ultimately, it's going to have to be worked out by the people, though, who live there, and it's up to them. How we get there, I really don't know. Mm-hmm. I just hope that we can do it without costing more lives, Palestinian or Jewish.
Yeah, no, I think globally, right, that is everybody's sentiment, that, it shouldn't cost any more lives, and that there should be some solution, whether it be a unitary state or nation, I should say, with maybe proportional representation as to who actually comes to govern that state. But no, thank you very much, Jason, for joining us on the Drive Time show today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and have a good day.
You too.
020-8687-7878 is the number to call. That was Jason Kishinev, a two-time anti-imperialist candidate for the U.S. Congress who prides himself on being a bold voice for justice and peace for all people.
Very bold, very bold. And, there are certain things regarding what Jason has just spoken about, which I'm sure we